That's serious, huh?
So hopefully,
No.
I'd like to call today as the agenda regular meeting Thursday, March the 5th, 2020. I'd like to ask everyone to please silence their cell phones, and there are blue slips in the back of the room if anyone needs to have anything on the agenda to bring this young lady up front. Mr. Burley for prayer and pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to meet here tonight. We just ask that you guide our decisions that are being made, that they're in the best interests of the people of this parish. We thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed on us and our families. And we just ask that you watch over this country as we go through this year. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Burley. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Vice President Abshire.
Here.
Mr. Andrepont was unable to attend the meeting this evening, had another engagement. Mr. Barris.
Here.
Mr. Barty.
Here.
Mr. Brame.
Here.
Mr. Burley.
Here.
Mr. Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Landry.
It's on its way.
Is running late. Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Markentile.
Here.
Mr. Richard.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Stelly.
Here.
Mr. Tremonti.
Here.
And President Gilreath.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Number 4, take appropriate action on all applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have 8 applications before you tonight and recommend they be approved.
I have a motion by Mr. Abshire
Second.
and a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motions have carried. Item 5, consideration of approving payment of all current invoices.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Hayes. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion have carried. Item 6, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated February 6, 2020. I have a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any objection? Any discussion? That motion carried. Item 7, consideration of approving the Ways and Means Committee reported dated February 27, 2020. Mr. Stelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Ways and Means Committee report is as follows. Received the presentation by staff regarding the police jury's 1.5 cent sales tax renewal on the April 4th, 2020 ballot, which is levied in unincorporated areas of the parish, excluding Ward 1, which is Moss Bluff and Gillis. The tax renewal, if passed, is dedicated to continue improving and maintaining parish roads, arterial transportation routes and intersections, enhancing drainage, solid waste collection and disposal, installation or extensions of public utilities, and funding for rural transportation systems. Staff advised that early voting for April 4th election is March the 21st through the 28th, 2020. That's the end of my report, Mr. President.
I have a motion by Mr. Stelly to receive report and a second by Mr. Abshire. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion have carried. Item 8, consideration of approving the Public Works Committee report
Move on
dated
8.
February 27, 2020. Can it all be taken as one or have a motion, okay. 8.1, presented a proclamation to Barbara Hardy, president of the Beta Kappa Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Item 2, presented a certificate of recognition to Mr. Mickey Smith, Jr. Item 3, received a presentation by staff regarding the Southwest District Livestock Show Hall of Fame exhibit located in the Burton Coliseum. Item 5, received report from staff and representative of C.H. Fenstermaker and Associates, LLC, regarding the status of the Regional Watershed Planning and Strategic Analyst Report. Item 8, recommended approving the following requests. A1, approving an amendment to the professional engineering contract for the continuation of engineering services related to the evaluation of the additional regional watersheds. A2, amending existing ordinances regulating the speed limit on the following roads: 2A, Ward 3, North Ella Kate Lane; B, Ward 4, WPA Road; C, Ward 7, Old Highway 90. 3, approving an amendment for the Ham Reed Road Extension Project. Item 4, approving an active sale agreement for the Niblets Bluff Road Bridge Replacement and Realignment Project. Item 5, approving an active sale agreement for the Dean Drive Bridge Replacement Project. Item 6, acknowledging that the annual municipal water pollution prevention audit has been conducted for sewage district number 11 of Ward 3 and 8 wastewater treatment plant. Number 7, authorizing the parish engineer to advertise for Dean Drive Bridge Replacement Project. Item 8, advise that the annual rabies vaccination clinics will be held on Saturday, March 14, 2020, and on Saturday, April 18, 2020. That includes the report. I need a motion to approve all items.
Make a motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion have carried. Item 9, consideration of approving the agenda committee reported dated February 27, 2020. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Barty. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion have carried. Item 10, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the Louisiana compliance questionnaire required in connection with the police jury's 2019 audit. I have a motion by Mr. Burley and a second by Mr. Stelly. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion have carried. Item 11. Okay. Item 11, consideration of adopting an ordinance rescinding condemnation ordinance number 6242 on the property located on the corner of Kunks Road and Thibodeau Lane.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Abshaw and a second by Mr. Smith. Yes, sir, Mr. Marketill.
Was this structure, has it been there since 2013 and just got demolished? Do we know?
No, sir.
Okay, okay,
It was already demolished.
Okay,
Way before then.
okay.
Evidently, they're selling the property and they need this, to clear the title, they need
Okay,
this to come off.
okay. That's all, Mr. President.
Thanks, Mr. Marketill. Any other discussion? And Mr. Landry?
Now I got a question. See, he started something. So when we condemn a structure, and I'm just assuming that this person didn't, it stayed on the tax roll perhaps, is that what happened here? Or did they actually pay to have it removed?
I'm not sure if they've actually paid whenever we sent the invoice to them. I have to go back and check, but
But once that's done, it stays attached to the property
yeah,
until we would take action to have it removed.
that's correct.
Even though they satisfied what needed to be done 20
Correct,
years ago,
yeah.
it still shows up.
Yeah, it's an ordinance, so it's.
I didn't know
it's
that.
Filed, yeah,
I learned something.
in the records. yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Barris?
Thank you. So, I mean, upon completion of the demolition, why wouldn't that just trigger us to right then and there, next available meeting, rescind that ordinance, just to get it done?
I guess it could. We just never done it that way. I mean, it's the ordinance stays on there until it gets rescinded. If the property exchanges hands, that's when they typically would request that to be cleared, for clearing the title.
That's the way we always did it.
Well, I mean,
I
we
like
can.
that. I like that.
It works.
It works in some cases.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. Is there any other discussion? Any objection? That motion carries. Item 12, take appropriate action on the following bids. 12A, bid for
Move on all
sign faces. The staff recommends that the low responsible and responsive bid of Valcom Incorporated DBA Valcom Signs be accepted. Item B, bids for 3 jet vac trucks. The staff recommends the low, responsible, and responsive bid of Covington Sales and Service Incorporated in the amount of $1,001,145,850 be accepted. Item C, bids for water level monitoring station parts. The staff recommends the respective low, responsible, and responsive bids of Campbell Scientific Incorporated, High Sierra Electronics Incorporated, and OTT Hydromet Corporation be accepted. Item D, Calcasieu Parish Project number 20-101-0023. The parish engineers recommend that the low bid in the amount of $4,106,134.04 of R.E. Height Construction Company LLC be accepted. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Brain. Is that on this one? Okay. Is there any discussion? Mr. Barris.
On B, man, just like when I was a kid, you know, when I saw the Millennium Falcon coming in and get all pumped up, when I see the big vac trucks in my neighborhood, in my part of the world, I get excited. Is this 3 more trucks, or is this 3 that is replacing 3 old ones?
These are 3 additional trucks that we're expanding that fleet and that piece of our maintenance effort. So this is all new.
Nothing but applause for that.
Thank
I
you, sir.
appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a question for Mr. Barris. When you were young, and remember the mosquito truck used to come around and it was a fog, did you ever play in that?
No,
You never did? All
No.
right. I was just wondering. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Landry. Is there any other discussion? Any objection? That motion carries.
Carol Burnett show.
Item 13, take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of various boards, districts. 13A, Calcasieu Parish Public Safety Communications District.
Move to appoint Mr. Dylan Berlin.
Move to appoint Mr. Dylan Berlin. I have a motion by Mr. Tremonti and a second by Mr. Brain. Item B, Creole Nature Trail Scenic Byway District. Move to reappoint Mr. Sam Wilkerson and move to reappoint Mr. Paul Guillory.
Second.
On both?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Tremonti and a second by Mr. Landry. Is there any discussion? Any objection? That motion carries.
And Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Just to
Mr.
clarify,
Mr.
the action taken just now is for both 13A and B.
We did them both separate.
Okay, and if we can just confirm that 13A and 13B have now carried.
Oh,
that'd be fine.
13A and
Sure.
13B. The motion
Is that your
carries.
motion, Mr.
Motion
Tremonti?
approved.
Yeah.
13A and 13B.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tremonti.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? Any objection? That motion carries. Item C, Ward 4 Fire Protection District Number 2. Move to defer.
I have
Yes, sir,
I
Mr.
have a
Barris.
question. I have since found out that Mr. Domain wishes to stay. May I change that to a move to reappoint?
Second.
Motion to reappoint, please.
Motion to reappoint Mr. Kenny Dominique by Mr. Domain, I'm sorry. By Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Landry. Is
Move
there
to
any
adjourn.
discussion? No, not yet, Mr. Landry.
Oh, come on.
There are no board members that advise items for 2020, but I do need to recognize Mr. Grimion for the report on the coronavirus. Mr. Grimion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Guillory. Dick Grimion, 901 Lakeshore Drive, Lake Charles, Louisiana. There's really, I think everything there is to be known is on TV right now. I mean, we're having wall-to-wall coverage of this, but just want to let you know that we're approaching this just like we would approach any other sort of emergency, hurricane or anything. We're in our preparedness phase right now. We've had several meetings with the our medical responders and the medical community. Brian can tell you that we get a ton of information every day, and we've been sending that out to, we have over 300 contacts on our email list, and we're sending that information out to them daily. The only significant thing that I think may turn into something is that the CDC released almost 500,000 test kits yesterday. So the numbers might go up some, but it's only, it could be because of the availability of the test kits. Right now, there's no known cases in Louisiana. There were 2 new cases that were diagnosed in Houston this afternoon. That's about the closest place to us. But again, we're preparing, looking over all our plans. We've had a pandemic plan for about 15 years. The last time we had to do detailed planning like this was the Ebola scare back in 2014. So we've taken that plan, modified it to fit the coronavirus, and we think we're pretty well prepared right now. If we need to move to the response phase, we're ready for that as well. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Greenfield?
I know Mr. Barris asked me one question. The symptoms, high fever, cough, and shortness of breath. It would be very similar to the flu, except that it doesn't have the intestinal component. But it does, the virus grows on the lungs and causes some obstruction in the lungs. That's why you have the shortness of breath.
Hayes.
Mr. Grimion, do you know the nationalities of the 2 cases in Houston?
No, I don't. It said that they were two persons who lived in the unincorporated part of Harris County, northwest Houston.
Yes, Mr. Brain.
We had one, there was a report yesterday of one in Fort Bend County, which is west of
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Now, that was an isolated case other than the 2 today?
I think they said on the one in Rosenberg, it was related to travel.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure they said also these other 2 were related to, or travel related, they think.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Brain. Mr. Smith.
Okay, yes, sir. If someone is suspected to have it, would they go to an actual doctor or the emergency room? How would they try to find out do they have it or not?
I think the suggestion would be for them to go to their family physician if they could. If they're already sick like that, you know, emergency rooms have a lot of sick people there already, so the initial recommendation would be to go to a doctor.
Mr. Tremonti.
And thank you for the report. I guess my question is where we would be ready to respond pretty quickly, knowing that 90% of the people that travel to these casinos here daily or from that Houston area. You know, it's likely that it could get here, but you're saying that we have the resources on hand
Well,
to test and to take care of it, or?
No, I didn't say that.
I'm just asking. I'm asking.
I said that the test kits would be available. Now, they're just now shipping these out to the state.
Okay.
I read, for example, the Harris County, which is millions of people,
Yes, sir.
they have test kits for enough for 200 to 400 people.
Okay.
So when you scale that down to what Louisiana's going to get, I can't give you a number, but
Right.
we'll probably have a number in a pretty near future, but they just released these yesterday. And as far as the travelers, we have all kinds of travelers here. So one of the things that has been set up early on this is if there's a person suspected of being sick on a ship that's coming into the port, the Coast Guard meets them offshore and they get medical attention to diagnose what the problem is. So that was one of the frequent questions we get. What about the ships coming into the port? They're all being checked.
Yes, Mr. Markendale. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
A test kit, test how many people?
It's 200 to 400 people, according to what I read today.
Okay, per kit, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grimion, for that
Okay,
report.
we'll keep you posted. If something changes, we'll let you know through administration.
Thank you. Seeing none, hearing none, need a motion to adjourn. We are now adjourned.